All right, good afternoon, Titans. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about managing your money during this uncertain time. I'm joined today by some representatives from Schools First Federal Credit Union, and they're going to be talking to you about managing money, creating spending budgets, and all of that good stuff, especially during this pandemic. It's really important to kind of reconsider maybe what we've been doing with our finances. I had originally reached out to them about just a financial literacy workshop or something about budgeting, but in thinking about it a little more, we had decided to do a presentation that's more geared towards what our Titans are experiencing right now. We know that a lot of you have either lost your job or maybe you have a reduced income, reduced hours. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Make sure to use the chat throughout this session. It's going to be open. It will come directly to me so I can see those questions and ask them to our financial experts. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our Schools First representatives so they can introduce themselves and get started with the presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, we are absolutely thrilled to be here, and we were so glad to hear from you when you reached out to ask about this important topic. We always appreciate the opportunity to be able to share some best practices of how to handle money and how to be successful at reaching your goals. So we appreciate you being committed to the financial success of your students. So we just ask that you keep your microphone muted and that your webcam stays off, and that's going to ensure a better quality presentation. Jennifer mentioned the chat. Feel free to put any comments in the chat at any time, and she'll be screening those and sharing that as appropriate. And just kind of right now to get a feel for testing the chat, and also a feel for if you're familiar with the difference between a bank and a credit union. If you could go ahead and type that into the chat, the difference, what you think the difference is between a bank and a credit union, that would be great. Okay, we'll touch on that here in just a moment. Jennifer can share if she sees anything in there in the chat. But my name is Shannon Workman. I'm with Schools First Federal Credit Union, and I oversee our financial education department. I've been working in credit unions and helping people with their money now for over 33 years, so it's been a long time. And joining me here today also is our financial educator, our financial education specialist, Oscar Herrera. Oscar, wave there. And he's been working in our financial education department now, wow, about a year and a half. And prior to that, has had a lot of experience working with people and their money, from mortgages to working in contact centers. So he's helped a lot of people with being successful with their money as well. So today we're going to be kind of touching on this, during uncertain times, particularly during a pandemic. Jennifer, was there any comments there about the difference between a bank and a credit union? Thinking that there probably wasn't anything in the chat. Oh, great.
We did one. This student mentioned that a credit union is usually geared towards a specific group of people. So there's a certain requirement in order to join a credit union.
Oh, very good. Yep, that is so true. So I like to kind of share, just because I think it's important for you to know your options. And I always start this by saying, I am not trying to sell you anything. That is not my job, to sell anyone on anything. My job is just to educate. And I think it's important that you know the difference between a bank and a credit union, so that when you are in need of financial services, you know that credit unions exist, and you can at least compare and do your due diligence and find out where you're going to be able to get the best value, where you're going to be able to get the best service, where they're going to be able to take care of you and meet your needs the best. So credit unions and banks are very similar in that they're both financial institutions. They offer the same types of products and services, savings accounts and checking accounts and debit cards and credit cards and home banking and auto loans to buy cars and mortgage loans to buy homes. All these same kinds of things you can get at a bank, you can get at a credit union. However, usually when I ask the question, how many of you have ever heard of a credit union, not too many hands go up. But when I say, well, how many of you heard of a bank, like all the hands go up. So I just want to make sure that you're aware that credit unions exist. Credit unions operate to serve the financial needs, particularly of people that don't have, we'll say, big balances. The banks really like to work because they are for profit, and they're working really to make a profit to be able to provide a rate of return for the small group of people, which are your stockholders and your investors. But at a credit unions are not-for-profit cooperatives, and credit unions really exist to serve our owners as well, but rather than that small group of people at a bank, which is those stockholders and investors, who owns the credit union is every single person who has an account. Every account holder is actually a member owner. So that's a big difference, a big focus difference. And I always just say, after 33 years to this day, I still say credit unions are like the best kept secret, but we want you to be aware of them. We want you to know about them so that you can at least compare. Again, where you're going to get the best value, where you're going to get the best service. And because credit unions are not-for-profit and a cooperative, and that's the reason why they serve that common bond, that field of membership, because we are a cooperative, typically those profits are passed back to the member owners, which is everyone who has an account. So you usually get a better value, lower fees, better interest rates on deposits, lower interest rates on loans, and you're usually just going to get a better value. And the focus is on you because you own the credit union. Every person who has an account. It doesn't matter if you have $5 or $500 million. You own the credit union. We're looking out for you. So, and one of our big missions is really to provide financial education. When credit unions started, people of modest means, it was farmers who started credit unions. And to this day, we kind of stand on those same principles. Those farmers 100 years ago started credit unions because banks were telling them you were too much risk, we don't want your business, and basically they didn't know where to go, so they started their own financial service cooperative. And it was people helping people, not for profit, not for charity, but for service. And we stand on those same principles today, people helping people, not for profit, not for charity, but for service. So we really just stand to serve you and to help you achieve your financial goals is what our goal is. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. I'd like to just mention right out of the gates that there are resources, and we want you to know about these, and we're going to talk a little bit more about one of them in particular, but off of our website, there's an advice tab, and that tab has a lot of resources for financial education. And there's also these short interactive modules. It's called our Money IQ, and it's about all kinds of different topics that you can continue kind of learning if you're interested in finding out more about everything from a checking account to a mortgage, which mortgages can be kind of complicated, but it kind of takes you through that process of if you're buying a home, what to expect from closing costs to just the process in general. So these short modules, they really are, they're interactive and they're really pretty comprehensive for being so short. Gives you a good baseline for understanding those different topics. And then finally, we work with a partner called GreenPath. And these are certified counselors in a lot of different areas that are available to help you individually with your financial situation. And you don't have to be a member of Schools First or any credit union for that matter. They will help anyone who contacts them, and their services are extensive. So we'll talk a little bit more about that at the very end, but I want you to be aware of that right out of the gates as far as additional resources that you'll have to kind of continue this learning if you so choose. Okay, so a budget. So this is a word that we find not a lot of people get real excited and jump up and down and just are elated to hear budget or think about budget. What we find most of the time is that people tell us it's kind of a negative word. They feel like it's restrictive. They can't do the things they want to do. It just doesn't come across real positive. And we really try to, everyone that we work with, we try to encourage our members to think of this positive. It really can be the difference between taking control of your money or your money controlling you. And we know that it can be negative. So what we say is call it whatever you want to call it. Call it a spending plan. Some people call it a savings plan, their financial goal plan, whatever it is. But really, that's what it is. It's your financial plan. And when you think about it in those terms, usually you're going to feel a little bit better about it. And again, it really can be all the difference in the world between you taking control of your money or your money controlling you. And I kind of like to touch on why. Why do you think it's important to have a budget, to work with your budget? Of course, it's going to help achieve your goals a lot, usually quicker. But why else? Can you think of any other reason why it might be a good thing to have a budget? If you want to just put that in the chat, that would be great. We'll see if anything comes through there. Why else, besides helping you reach your financial goals, might it be helpful to have a budget?
I had someone say to reduce stress.
Oh, I love it. Wonderful. I knew Cal State Fullerton students, Titans, were on it, and certainly that is one of the main things I want to get across today, is that by having a plan, it really does bring down stress. And what we've found is a lot of studies have been done on this, and that a lot of people are really in a lot of stress and anxiety over money. And having a plan, having a budget, getting in control of your finances really will improve a lot of areas of your life, including your health. There are so many diseases and things that affect your health that have been tied to stress. Your relationships, having better relationships as a result of having a budget and getting in control of your money. Your sleeping better. Studies have shown that you're going to sleep better. You're not going to be worried about all these what ifs when you get in control of your money and have a plan for your money. So not only is it going to help you financially, but it's also going to help you emotionally and just be more confident. A lot of really positive things are, as a result of getting a budget together. So definitely a big positive. So I'm going to ask for you just to take a moment here and think about this time last year. So we are at November 6th. Think about November 6th, 2019. Seems like a long time ago, right? But last year, you're still in fall, before Thanksgiving, and what were your financial goals at that time? What were you thinking about with your money? What kind of things were you make happening? And then I'm going to ask you to think about today. So a year later, fast forward here, lots has happened in this last year. And what are your financial goals today? So if that's something that maybe you might just want to put in the chat, if there's a big difference or maybe they're the same, just kind of share with us the differences that you see with your money as far as what you're focused on and what you're trying to achieve a year ago compared to today.
So we had one answer that said the financial goals today are just to stay on track, to be able to pay their rent, pay all their bills, and not have to use too many loans or rack up credit card bills.
Fantastic. Yep. And any comment as far as a year ago, was it pretty much the same for the person responding there?
A year ago, it was more about saving for goals like traveling or gifts for themselves or family. So the goals have shifted there a little bit.
Gotcha. Yep. And that's so true, right? A year ago was a little bit different. Some people have told us that it's kind of the same focus, but most people have told us that it is a different focus today than it was a year ago, just because the landscape has changed so much. So thank you for sharing that. I'll kind of just take us through here. Okay. So we want to know that, during this pandemic, kind of this uncertain time, things are looking a little different. Maybe there's been some income, loss or less income. A lot of people we talk to, maybe their overtime has been slashed, or they just lost their job overall and now they're, collecting unemployment. Whatever the case is, you just want to assess your situation. First thing you want to do is just kind of get a feel for exactly where we're at, and then how much money do we actually need each month. That's going to help us build our budget. And then again, we're going to create this plan, whatever you want to call it, but knowing that it's going to be a plan for our money. And we're going to go through basically these 4 steps. And the first thing we want to do is just set our goals. What is it we're trying to achieve? Jennifer, I think you mentioned that someone just said, kind of just making sure we pay the rent and, the basic things, not necessarily the luxury things right now, like traveling, even if we could, right? Even if we could travel, but just kind of taking the time to set your goals. I assure you, this is something that is a best practice of people I've worked with over the years that have really been successful at managing their money. They take time to plan for their money. They take time to figure out what it is they want to accomplish with their money, and then they build that plan around that. And not just putting into their monthly expenses their actual necessities, rent and food and these things, but also the things that they want, those goals that they have. Maybe it's saving for a new car, they're saving for the down payment, or whatever the case is. So just getting in a good habit of setting goals for your money. We find that a lot of people tell us that they really didn't grow up that way. They didn't grow up talking about money. They didn't grow up planning about money, planning for their money. They really didn't talk much about money. They didn't think about it. It just kind of let it happen is what was going on. And, that's the example that they had. So we really say it's okay to do that. You don't want to become obsessed with it for sure, because there's so many more important things than money, but it's not going to happen on its own. So you got to plan some time and set those goals. And then we're going to get organized. And what we mean by this is most people really don't know how much money they spend in the categories that are variable. For example, food. Food is a big one that most people, when you ask them, well, how much do you spend a month in food? They don't know. And college students are a little different because you might have a meal plan and then you kind of know exactly how much. But most people, at least that I've worked with over the years, they really do not know. So we want to kind of track and then figure out how much is being spent and then determine if there needs to be adjustments to that. And then a lot of times when we're doing that tracking, there may be an opportunity to make some cuts. There might be some ways to save some money. And the other thing I always say is just how important it is to make conscious decisions. A lot of times there'll be a lot of money spent in different categories, from buying shoes or clothes or spending money online or Starbucks, all these different things that people think of it just as small amounts, but it can really add up to big amounts. So we want you to know how much you're spending. If it's within your budget and you feel good about it, that's okay to spend that much. It's your money. You get to decide what to do with your money. We don't tell our members what to do with their money. We just help guide them and hopefully make better decisions. But sometimes members do say, oh, I had no idea I was spending that much money on, we'll say Starbucks, that's a common one, that much money on Starbucks. So then they'll say, oh, I want to spend less in that category. I'm going to make some changes there and not spend so much in that area. And then, they make a conscious decision. This is how much I'm going to allow myself to spend in whatever the category is. And then ultimately, we want to build this better budget. We want to save for the future. There are 2 things that when we're assessing with our members that we really try to impress upon them how important it is if they haven't thought of this as a goal for themselves, and that is an emergency savings account. That is a big one that we really want our members to have that money set aside so that if they do experience an income fluctuation or an unexpected expense, they've got money set aside in an emergency savings account that they can pull from, take care of the situation, and then work at refunding that emergency savings account. But that's a big one. We find that is going to lower stress, let you sleep better, have better health, because you're not as worried then about all the what ifs because you've got that well-funded emergency savings account. Typically, that would be 3 months worth of your essential expenses or more. So we know some financial planners will say a year's worth. We say that is a huge number and it can be overwhelming. So we work with our members to try to at least get 3 months worth of essential expenses set aside. And then the other thing that we really impress upon our members to think about as a goal, if they haven't already shared with us, is retirement. And I know as college students that seems so far out for you, right? But I'm going to just share that the sooner you start, the better it is for you. The less hard-earned money that you have to put away of your own money by allowing time for compound interest to grow that amount. You put in less and it compounds where your interest is earning interest. Your money is earning money, which is a great thing for you. And the sooner you start, the better. So I just encourage you that, today probably isn't the best time while you're a student, especially if you're a full-time student. But once you get that full-time job and you start your job, I just say get it started as soon as you can. It's only going to benefit you. And especially if your employer offers a match, don't let that money go. It's basically like free money. So maybe they're going to match. If you put in 3%, they put in 3%. So take advantage of that and at least put in that minimum amount to get the match. Try to put more if you can, but that will definitely help you. Okay, so here is just an example of a spending plan. Now this is actually someone who has a mortgage, and of course they've got their utilities that include the gas and electric and cell phone and their cable and their internet, of course their food and some household items. They have a car payment and car insurance, and then gas for the car, and then they have a student loan. So these are their expenses that they're looking at. Now, to put this together, there's lots of different ways to do this. From as simple as writing it on a napkin to using an app. A lot of people use spreadsheets, but there's a lot of really good apps. Many of them are like integrated into your financial institution where you have your checking account. They have budgeting software that's available a lot of times to help. But there's also other budgeting apps that you can use. So pretty much if they're out there as a budgeting app, it's going to be a benefit, but you don't have to do it high tech. You can certainly do this. It's as simple as writing it on a piece of paper or a napkin for that matter. The key is just to get into a good habit of doing it. All right, so maybe right now during these uncertain times with the pandemic, maybe your income has been reduced. That's kind of common right now. So, looking at some different ways, maybe is there a way to bring in some more income? Lots of good examples these days of the gig economy and different things people are doing to bring in more income. If you are still working, maybe it might be a good time to change your deductions. Maybe more is coming out of your account than you need to right now, and you could lower it so you could get more with each paycheck right now. Just know that that could affect your taxes when you file, but sometimes that's a strategy that people will implement now. Maybe you have some things that you're not really using anymore and you could sell them to make some additional income right now. That short-term debt, I know initially someone had mentioned about trying to steer clear from that, and that's a great idea whenever possible to try to have the least amount of debt as possible. But in these types of situations, sometimes it does make sense to take on some short-term debt. But I definitely suggest talking to a credit union because that's usually where you're going to get the best value with that as far as when you repay it. But I definitely want to say stay away from those predatory type lenders, which would be like check cashing places and payday lenders and pawn shops and all these different kinds of places that are available, and they're really easy to get access to. But the problem is they will charge so much. They're exorbitant in their fees, and it's almost impossible to get out of that cycle. So just really, really be careful and steer clear of those. And then if you do have savings, drawing on that, that's absolutely fine. Stay away if you can from retirement savings, and just if there's liquid savings that you can use to make up for an income shortfall, that makes a lot of sense right now if that's needed. And another thing on that I just want to mention is I know I read a study just recently that was talking about there actually were a lot of people who had funded their emergency savings account pretty well before the pandemic, and it was causing them a lot of stress to have to use their emergency savings account. So know that if you have to use it, it's okay. You can work on getting it refunded, and it just celebrate the fact that you had it there and it was available, and that you did the right things. So you have good habits already. Just continue those when you're able, but when you need to draw from them, don't let yourself get stressed and have a lot of anxiety over the fact that you're needing to use that, because that was the purpose of having that emergency savings account. Okay, so kind of, during these uncertain times, if we're kind of in a pinch, we're going to need to kind of prioritize our expenses, food and medicine and housing up at the top of this list, and then things on the bottom, like possibly even our unsecured debt. We might have to work with our creditor to see what we can do to get that repaid. If we've got non-essential utilities or just discretionary spending, those are going to be lower priority. But up on top, the food, medicine, housing, child care if you have a child, making sure you take care of those essential utilities so you have heat, if being able to have gas if you need to be able to cook. All these things are essential. So, and then of course transportation and insurance is important there in the middle, but there may be ways to actually have your transportation expenses reduced. Okay, so we kind of wanted to touch on, because of the topic and nature of this presentation, some of the things that if you're having some struggles. So trying to prevent evictions and foreclosures, and because of COVID, there were some new rules that went into place, particularly through the end of this year, as far as housing, mortgages, and rents. You may be eligible to have those payments reduced or suspended for up to a year. But the key here is just not ignoring the situation, but making sure you're having communication with the landlord or with your lender, that you're in discussions with them, that you're not just ignoring it, because that won't make the situation better. And then student loans, you might be aware that there's no payments due, and the interest rate was set down to 0% because of COVID. So this is actually a great opportunity, saving a lot of interest. It originally was through September, and now it was extended through December, to the end of the year. And who knows, there may still be more changes to come if Congress can agree there. But what I've also talked to members about is how they've taken advantage of this 0% interest rate. So they've been making some, these would have been members who didn't have an income shortfall, that they've been fortunate enough to be basically an essential worker and continued working and having no interruption in their income, but they've actually made extra payments on their student loans because they've been able to take advantage of this 0%, and it's all going towards principal. So, so they're benefiting in that way. And then utilities, some states have suspended, that they can't shut off your utilities. So if you need assistance, you're going to want to make sure to ask for assistance and just check with your state. This is California state for utilities, the cpuc.ca.gov, and then it's got the COVID-19 protections. But definitely check on those things for sure. If you need them, just now is the time. Just get out in front of it as much as you can. And then even with credit cards, if you're having struggle, having some challenges making those payments and balancing everything in your budget, and there are definitely some new rules because of COVID, reach out to them, work with them, explain what's going on, and most all creditors are going to try to work with you with a plan to get through it. And I already mentioned just, avoiding at all costs, really, to avoid those cash advances and title loans and payday loans and check cashing places, and these places that will really put you into a situation that will be really difficult to get out of. All right, and just using, all these resources that are available to you throughout the community, from churches to community food banks. There's just a lot of different ways that you can find resources available, especially right now during COVID. And one of the things we like to mention is that 211, if you've never heard of that, it's sponsored by the United Way, but anywhere in the United States, if you take a phone and call 211, you're going to be connected to basically social services, and they're going to be able to help in a lot of different ways, from emergency, financial situations, from I have no place to sleep tonight to I need some diapers for my child, and lots and lots and lots of other examples there. But 211 is a really great resource that if you walk away today knowing that you didn't know before, that is useful. And If you know someone who could benefit from that, absolutely. There's no advertisement. There's no money to market 211. It's a nonprofit. So you won't hear about it unless someone tells you about it. And it's a really great network of resources to help you. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about GreenPath is one of the partners that we work with at Schools First, but you don't have to be a Schools First member. They actually work with anyone that calls them. They're going to help. And they've got these certified counselors. They're going to be able to provide financial counseling, help you create your budget. Let's say you just really want some help creating this budget to achieve your goals. They will work with you immediately, and they'll have a plan emailed to you within an hour. They also, if someone's struggling and right now maybe, possibly being evicted or foreclosed on, they have HUD, which is the Housing and Urban Development. They have HUD certified counselors that can help prevent foreclosures and prevent evictions. Same thing with student loan counseling. They have counselors who are certified in student loans. They're going to be able to help if you have questions and need help in that area. And then also they have a lot of other things as well, from identity theft to just a lot of ways that they help people with their finances. But a debt management plan, what that is for is, let's say someone is really struggling right now with their creditors contacting them and they can't pay. It's just not, right now it's just a challenge. They can enter into what's called a debt management plan, and then what happens is basically it gets consolidated, and then GreenPath distributes the payments, but they also will negotiate, and a lot of these things are automated with the lenders, where they can get the payment reduced and the interest rate reduced. So that way the member's paying less per month, and it's a lot less stress because it's just that one payment, and then that gets paid out to all the creditors. And I know that there are a lot of people who really benefit from working with them in that area, as well as all the areas that they have. So that number there, toll-free number, you can contact them off of our advice tab, as well as this greenpath.com/partner/schools first. You'll get right to being able to be connected with them. All right, and with that, Jennifer, do we have any questions? If you want to type into the chat if you have questions right now, happy to help in any way we can.
We did get a few throughout the presentation, and I'll see if we can get more, but I can get us started with the first one. Can I take out a loan with a credit union if I'm not a member?
So in order to use any services at a credit union, you do have to be a member. So you have to be eligible to join, but I can tell you with Schools First, we serve school employees and their families. So that's our common bond and our field of membership. But there's a lot of credit unions who have the exact same focus as we do. We're the credit union movement. We don't really even call ourselves an industry, but a lot of credit unions that have the same focus. People helping people, not for profit, not for charity, but for service, and that you would be eligible for it. For example, if you live, work, or worship or attend school in Orange County, which Cal State Fullerton is, Orange County's credit union you should be eligible for. There's a credit union of Southern California that I know serves anyone who lives, works, or worships in Southern California. Another great way is to check in with family members to find out if they belong to a credit union, and then you should be able to join as a result of your relationship with your family member, their credit union. So even if you can't join Schools First, you should be able to join a credit union, but you do have to be a member before you can take out any services, including a loan.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. All right, Our next question. This student says that they have a part-time job and their hours vary, so their income varies from month to month. They want to know if you have any tips on creating a monthly budget when their income seems to change each month.
Yeah, so what's going to happen if you apply for a loan as a lender, in my past life I did loans a lot, and they're going to use an average. And that's a pretty good rule of thumb too, even when you're creating your budget. But the problem, or I won't say the problem, but the thing about that is those low months, you're not going to have as much as your average. So you have to kind of plan for that by putting money away, basically, in savings, so that you can cover those months that are lower than your average.
That leads right into our next question, which is there a certain percent of my monthly income that I should be saving each month?
Okay, so everyone's a little different on this. And ideally, what we try to work with our members is to get up to that 10%. But I know that can be a challenge. But a lot of times with college students, university students, I find that they're telling me that they're already trying to save even more than 10%. So I always applaud them and say, that's awesome. You're in a great habit. As you take on more and more financial responsibilities, that may have to come down, and that'll be okay. But most of the time, what members will tell us is that, how can I possibly get to 10%? I can barely make it right now. So we say, you know what, here's what we want you to do. We want you to just start saving. Every time you get money, let's put a percentage, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's only $1, whatever it is. Start getting in a habit of saving, and then you'll eventually be able to increase it, because you'll find that I can do this. This isn't that bad, that I can make this happen. And next thing you know, you're able to bump it up to as much as you possibly can. But just get in a habit of saving, and that's going to benefit you.
Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, this is our final question. I want to create a spending budget, but it seems really overwhelming. Are there any apps or programs that you recommend to help me create and track my spending?
Oh, yeah. So at the credit union, we don't necessarily recommend them, but there are a lot out there. And ones that I've heard that a lot of members use, Mint is one that's very common. You Need a Budget, YNAB, is very common. But honestly, if you contact this number here, you're going to have a certified counselor help you. And like I said, you give yourself about 45 minutes to talk with a counselor. They can help prepare and put your budget together, and then you'll receive that, and then you can work with them. They can coach you if you want to have multiple discussions, even every month if you wanted to. But they definitely can help do that. And then the other thing is, with your financial institution, your checking account financial institution, typically, a lot of times they have integrated type software that or apps that they have available to help with budgeting as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shannon, and thank you, Oscar. That was our final question. Before we let you go, did you have any closing remarks for our Titans?
You can do this. You can be successful at reaching your financial goals. It's something that it doesn't come easy to most people, but it definitely is doable, and it can be done. And celebrate those wins when you make, when you're able to achieve your goals. And don't forget to also set small goals. It doesn't have to always just be the big goals like buying cars and buying homes. Even the small goals will really encourage you to continue those good habits, and sometimes it is a little bit of sacrifice that you have to give up maybe something that you want to buy today, knowing that you want to put it towards the goal that you really have. So yeah, just get in really good habits, continue to get financial education. We aren't born knowing anything about money, just like we're not born knowing really anything about anything, right? It is really a good habit to seek out people who have the knowledge, who have the experience, who can help you. Don't ever be embarrassed to ask questions.
Well, awesome.
All right, with that, okay.
So Titans, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. As a reminder, it was recorded and it will be posted on our website this upcoming Monday, November 9th. So check it out, share it with a friend. And until next time, we'll see you later, Titans. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.